Hi, welcome to Hack of All Trades. My name's John. Thanks for joining me. This video is the first in a small series all about selecting and installing a Chinese-built Android head unit for a 2000s-era BMW. So that is E38, E39, E46 and E53. I'll be paying special attention to those cars fitted with the factory DSP amplifier, but a lot of the information contained in this video will also apply to cars without that option. The reason I'm making this series is because I see a lot of questions asked in various forums and on Facebook, and they are very often the same questions that I asked when I was doing my installation about 6 months ago. So I'm looking to share some of the lessons that I learned and answer some of the questions that you will have. And I hope to also give you some things to consider that you might not have thought about yet. All of this is based on my own experience installing a Deciter Max 6 into my 1999 E39 5 Series, equipped with the factory DSP amplifier. I've got no other experience doing other installations, and as such you should treat this video just as a guide and do your own research. Having said that, from all of the reading that I did, it is clear that most of the lessons that I learned also apply to the overwhelming majority of the Chinese-built Android head units. So let's take a look at some of the pros and cons of buying a Chinese-built Android head unit. The most obvious pro is the great bang for your buck that you get with these units. The existing infotainment systems in our cars, while they were very good in their day, are now quite outdated. An Android head unit very successfully brings our cars into the modern era, replacing the existing functionality and adding a whole lot more, and all at a really good price. There's plenty of information available to you on the Android Auto forums, on the XDA developer forums, and you'll find a link to those forums in the description below. As far as I'm aware, this is the single greatest source of information available on these head units, and it's where I learnt almost everything that I now know about these units. Being Android devices, they are very customizable at a superficial level, and there's multiple launchers available that will enable you to customize the look and feel of the user interface. And of course, there's plenty of other apps available on the Play Store to help you get the most out of your unit. There are a couple of cons that you should consider before throwing your hard-earned cash at one of the AliExpress sellers. Subjectively, these units just aren't as reliable as the Japanese-built units. After-sales support is somewhat lackluster. The likes of Sony and Alpine and the other Japanese-based manufacturers benefit from a huge retail base and locally based distributors. And these things are completely missing when you buy a Chinese-built head unit. In my own experience, I found that questions were answered very quickly before I made a purchase and a whole lot slower after the transaction had taken place. And that's not too surprising, I guess. Thankfully, the huge support base over at the XDA developers forums makes up for that to some extent. So which head unit should you buy? Well, first of all, it's important to note that virtually all of the Chinese-built Android head units will work with the factory DSP amplifier, despite the majority of the manufacturers explicitly saying that they won't. I've got no idea why they don't embrace this, but in my opinion, they're just doing themselves a disservice by not acknowledging this. To get it to work with the factory DSP amplifier, all you need is the Resla USB to iBus interface and the iBus app. Links to both of these are in the description, and we'll be going into these in much more detail in a future video in this series. If you're like me and you like to customize your Android phone with custom ROMs and root access and all of that sort of stuff, then there are a few things that you should consider when buying an Android head unit. As far as I know, the only units with custom ROMs available are those with the ROC chip processor, either the PX3, PX5 or the newest PX6, and a MicronTech MCU such as the MTCB, MTCD or MTCE MCU. Well, that was certainly the case when I bought my unit 6 months ago, and it may have changed in the meantime. But as far as I know, they are the only combination where custom ROMs are available. There are a few other combinations of processor and MCU that can be rooted, but the vast majority of them can't at this point. It's up to you to decide whether any of that is important to you or not. If that level of customization is not important to you, then you open yourself up to a much greater variety of units that may meet your needs. And I mentioned the MCU before, and that the MCU stands for microcontroller unit. It's what interfaces the Android system to the workings of your car. It's built into the unit itself and it can't be changed. The unit is based on that MCU. In any case, my biggest recommendation is that you buy a unit with 4 gigabytes of RAM. There are units available that have 2 gigabytes or even 1 gigabyte, and I would suggest that this will be the major limiting factor regarding the longevity of your unit. Less RAM does and will have a massive impact on performance, and as applications just keep getting bigger, this problem will only get worse. Buying a unit with 4 gigabytes of RAM will ensure that the unit will keep on performing in the longer term. Before diving in, there are a few caveats that you need to be aware of. Some of the default applications, such as the inbuilt radio app and those apps triggered by the mode button, on most of the units that I've seen can't be changed without root access, so you're stuck with what the manufacturer has deemed to be acceptable. Secondly, and this is probably the biggie, is that you need to be aware that the Bluetooth stack that is built into these units is of limited functionality. You'll be able to connect to your phone, so you'll be able to stream music, get access to contacts, make calls, etc., and you'll be able to connect to an OBD reader. But that's it. They won't connect to any other Bluetooth devices. This is hard-coded into the unit and it can't be changed. There's no getting around it. So let's take a look at form factors, which is probably one of the biggest factors that is going to influence your buying decision. As far as I know, there are 3 main form factors available for direct fitment into our cars. There are quite a few other generic form factors available, but I'm just going to be concentrating on the 3 that are custom made to fit into this era of BMW. The first form factor is the one most people will be familiar with. It mimics the look of a stock head unit, and it has a small touchscreen in the middle with a column of buttons down either side and knobs below each column of buttons. Both Extrons and Yonan, I don't know how you pronounce that, but I'll go with Yonan, are well known for this type of unit with this form factor. There are quite a few pros to these type of units. Firstly, they look stock, and that's a must-have for many people, and I certainly understand that. Secondly, they feature real knobs and buttons, and the tactile feedback that you get from those is just something that no touchscreen can replicate. And it's a huge plus, especially when you're driving. The main con from my point of view is the relatively small touchscreen in the middle. The second form factor to consider is the widescreen touchscreen unit. As far as I'm aware, only Extrons offers this type of unit, and it's basically a 10-inch wide screen where the whole unit fits neatly within the cutout of the stock head unit. The main pro is the big screen, of course. The cons are that there are no hard buttons. Also, they use a non-standard resolution and aspect ratio, and that may cause some problems as most Android apps are written for use on a phone in portrait mode. Having said that, the very wide screen may be of a benefit when running 2 apps side by side in split screen mode. The third form factor available is the large 9-inch screen touchscreen unit, and this is the type of unit that I went for. This is a large 16:9 aspect ratio screen that sits proud of the dash, as the screen is much larger than the cutout for the stock head unit. The main pro for this is the large screen, and this was the main reason I chose this type of unit. Personally, my vision for distances above 1.5 meters is pretty much perfect, but for distances below that, it gets a bit fuzzy. So having a big clear screen makes things much easier for me. The main con with this sort of unit is that the vast majority of them are made to fit an E53 specifically. The E53 has a fascia that curves back at the top, and so when it's fitted into a non-E53 car, the fit is less than perfect. Okay, so that's all for this video. Thanks very much for sticking around, and I hope you got something out of that. In future videos, we'll be going through the installation, and we'll be looking at an alternative installation method. We'll be looking at some of the things that you should consider during installation. We'll be taking a very close look at integrating with the factory DSP amplifier and how you set that up with the Resler interface and the iBus app. We'll be going through some troubleshooting, and in the end I'll also do a hands-on review with the unit that I installed. Hopefully that's of some interest and benefit to you, and if it is, please subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.